She lent him money so he could take the bus without imagining that he was a millionaire. Imagine Buenos Aires' restless pulse, a city where dreams scrape by on loose change. Ana Luz Fernandez trudges through its grind, her kindness a quiet spark. Then a stranger needs her coins, and one small act lights a fuse she can't see. Is he just a broke dreamer or something more? Let's unravel this mystery. Ana Luz Fernandez's shoulders ached as she trudged toward the bus stop, the November wind slicing through her thin blue hoodie. A cruel whisper of winter's approach she couldn't afford to outrun with a proper coat. 3 morning classes at the university, followed by an 8-hour shift at Despertar Vivo, the bustling Buenos Aires coffee shop that kept her half of the rent paid, had wrung her dry. The number 42 bus rolled up right on time. She climbed aboard, flashed her monthly pass at the driver, a grizzled, middle-aged man with a permanent scowl, and slumped into a seat near the back. Her forehead pressed against the cool window, the city lights smearing into a haze as exhaustion sank into her bones. "Wait!" a voice rang out, sharp and breathless, just as the doors hissed shut. The driver grumbled, reopening them with a reluctant jolt. A young man in his early 20s leapt on, panting slightly. He wore faded jeans and a gray sweater that somehow looked polished despite its simplicity. His dark hair windswept, his posture radiating a quiet confidence that turned a few heads. "That'll be $3.50, the driver barked, his tone flat. The young man patted his pockets, panic creeping into his hazel eyes. "I'm sorry. I think I left my wallet in my other..." He stopped mid-sentence, embarrassment flushing his face. "No money, no ride," the driver snapped, jabbing a finger toward the door. "I've got a schedule to keep." Ana watched the exchange, her tired gaze catching the flicker of shame in the stranger's eyes, a look she knew too well from her own lean days. Without thinking, she stood, fishing into her pocket for the loose change she'd earned in tips. "Here," she said, stepping forward and extending her hand with 3 pesos and 2 quarters. "I've got it." The young man turned, surprise lighting his features. For a moment he seemed ready to refuse, but then he nodded gratefully. "Thank you. I'll pay you back somehow." "Don't worry about it," Ana replied with a weary smile, shuffling back to her seat. He found a spot a few rows ahead, glancing back at her now and then. Ana barely noticed, her mind drifting to tomorrow's exam and whether her mom in Mendoza had taken her meds. What Ana couldn't know was that she had just lent money to Mateo Ignacio Torres, heir to the Torres Lux Hotels empire, sprawling across 3 continents. A man whose face occasionally graced business magazines beside headlines of wealth and power. He looked back one more time at the girl in the blue hoodie, her eyes now closed, her face calm despite the obvious fatigue, and felt something unfamiliar, a tug that had nothing to do with his last name or his family's fortune. As the bus rumbled through Buenos Aires' neon-lit streets, 2 worlds brushed against each other, neither aware that this fleeting kindness would rewrite their futures. Ana's fingers danced across the espresso machine with practiced ease the next morning. Steaming milk, grinding beans, pouring perfect Rosetta patterns. A rhythm etched into her after 2 years at Despertar Vivo. The morning rush was a storm of caffeine-starved customers, the line snaking to the door. "Grande caramel latte with almond milk," she called out, sliding the cup across the counter without looking up. "Thanks," a familiar voice replied. Ana glanced up and froze. Standing before her was the young man from the bus, the one she'd helped yesterday. In daylight, she noticed details the dim bus lights had hidden, a sharp jawline, intelligent hazel eyes, and that same understated elegance in his simplicity. "It's you," she said, surprise threading her voice. He smiled, a playful glint in his gaze. "I told you I'd pay you back for $3.50. You didn't have to come all this way, she replied. Maybe I want good coffee too, he said, his tone light. I'm Matteo, by the way. Anna, she answered automatically, before her co-worker, Clara Rossi, nudged her sharply. We got 6 people waiting on drinks, Clara hissed. Right, sorry, Anna muttered, turning back to Matteo. I need to... Of course, he said, dropping a 5-peso bill in the tip jar. Thanks again, Anna. She watched him choose a table by the window, pulling out a book instead of a phone, an odd, refreshing choice amid the morning chaos. Throughout her shift, she caught him glancing up occasionally, their eyes meeting briefly before both looked away. When the rush finally died down, Anna grabbed a rag and began wiping nearby tables. So, she said, approaching Matteo's table, do you make a habit of forgetting your wallet? He laughed, closing his book. Not usually. Yesterday was unusual. How so? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Let's just say I'm trying something different with my life, he replied, his expression earnest. Mysterious, she teased. Not intentionally, he said, then hesitated. This might sound strange, but you're the first person who's done something nice for me without expecting anything back. It was just bus fare, Anna said, confused by his intensity. Still, he pressed, I'd like to thank you properly. Maybe coffee sometime, when you're not working. Anna studied him, trying to read his intentions. There was something he wasn't saying, but his eyes seemed genuine. I don't even know you, she said. That's the point of coffee, isn't it? He countered with a grin. To get to know someone? Before she could answer, her manager called from behind the counter. Anna, break's over. I'm here most mornings, Matteo said quickly. Think about it. Anna nodded hesitantly before returning to work. Throughout the day, she found herself glancing at the spot where he'd sat, now taken by a student with headphones. She told herself it was ridiculous to feel disappointed when he didn't show up the next day. But when he appeared the following morning, casually ordering a black coffee and asking how her day was going, something warm flickered to life inside her chest, a feeling she hadn't known in a long time. What began as coincidence was quickly becoming routine, though Anna had no idea just how tangled that routine would become. So let me get this straight, Anna said, stirring her latte at their 5th coffee meetup in 2 weeks, this time after her shift ended at Despertar Vivo. You just decided to quit your corporate job and start over? Matteo sat across from her at a small table in the back corner, his expression thoughtful. Something like that, he replied. The family business wasn't who I wanted to be. Anna nodded, understanding more than he realized. My dad was like that. Had this whole life planned out for me, college, law school, joining his firm. When I chose art history instead, he stopped paying for anything. She shrugged, trying to make it sound less painful than it was. Haven't spoken to him in 3 years. Matteo leaned forward. That's rough. Is that why you work so many hours here? That and helping Mama with rent, Anna said, surprised by her own candor. She's got health issues back in Mendoza. Something about Matteo made it easy to open up. Anyway, enough about my sad backstory. What are you doing now, job-wise? Matteo shifted in his seat. Freelance consulting, nothing exciting. Mr. Mysterious strikes again, Anna teased. You never talk about your past. Because it's boring compared to hearing about your passion for Renaissance art, he said, deflecting with a smile. Anna rolled her eyes, but couldn't help grinning. Smooth. The coffee shop was nearly empty now. Outside, streetlights flickered on as dusk settled over Buenos Aires. Anna should have been heading home. She had reading to finish for tomorrow's class. But she found herself reluctant to end their conversation. Can I ask you something? Matteo said, his tone suddenly serious. Depends on the question, she replied. What do you want? Like really want out of life? Anna blinked. caught off guard by his directness. I want to finish my degree, get a job at a museum someday, maybe curate my own exhibition. She paused. And not worry about money constantly. That'd be nice. That's it? No dreams of world travel or mansions? He asked. Those things cost money I don't have, she laughed. I'm practical. But if money wasn't an issue, I'd take Mama to Italy. She's always wanted to see Florence. Matteo tilted his head. Your turn. What do you want? Torres, he smiled, but his eyes held something she couldn't quite read. Freedom, to just be me, not what others expect. And who's the real you? Anna asked softly. I'm still figuring that out, he said, his gaze meeting hers. But I feel more like myself when I'm with you than I have in a long time. The confession hung between them, honest and unguarded. Anna felt a flutter in her chest that both excited and terrified her. I should go, she said finally, gathering her things. Early class tomorrow. Matteo nodded, walking her to the door. Same time next week? Maybe sooner, Anna replied before she could second-guess herself. There's a student exhibition at my college Friday night. Nothing fancy, but I'd love to go, Matteo said immediately. As they parted ways outside, Anna realized that for the first time in years, she was letting someone new into her carefully constructed world. She wasn't sure if it was wise, but something about Matteo made her want him to take the risk. What she didn't see was Matteo's face after she left, the conflict and guilt shadowing his features as he pulled out a phone far too sleek for his simple clothes suggested. The university gallery in Buenos Aires buzzed with conversation as students and faculty milled around, examining artwork displayed on pristine white walls. Anna stood beside a series of photographs, not her work, but those of a friend who'd asked her to explain them to visitors. He's exploring urban decay as a metaphor for forgotten communities, she explained to an elderly professor who nodded with polite interest. Her eyes kept drifting to the entrance. Matteo was 20 minutes late, and Anna was beginning to think he wouldn't show. She checked her phone, no messages. Oh, sorry I'm late, a voice said behind her. Anna turned to find Matteo, slightly out of breath, his hair wind-blown. Couldn't find parking. You drove? Anna asked, surprised. I thought you took the bus. Borrowed a friend's car, Matteo explained quickly. This exhibition meant a lot to you, so... Anna smiled, letting her suspicion fade. I'm glad you made it. Let me show you around. As they walked through the gallery, Anna noticed a few things that didn't quite add up. Matteo's simple watch, which he kept trying to hide under his sleeve, looked suspiciously like a luxury brand she'd seen in magazine ads. His knowledge of art was surprisingly sophisticated for someone who claimed a standard business background, and when he received a call, he stepped away to speak in hushed tones, returning with a tightness around his eyes. Everything okay? Anna asked. Just work, he muttered. Sorry about that. Later, as they stood before a striking abstract painting, Anna gathered her courage. Matteo, can I ask you something? Of course, he said, turning to her. Who are you, really? Sometimes. A late arrival in Buenos Aires. Matteo's here, but shadows cling to his every word. Anna's lending more than coins now. Her trust's on the line. Is he just a charming stranger, or a secret too big to hold? The truth's creeping closer. Don't miss what's next. Buenos Aires hums with secrets, and Ana Luz Fernandez is falling for a stranger's charm. Matteo Ignacio Torres hides behind a simple smile. But when a watch betrays him, the truth creeps closer. Is he her savior or a lie waiting to break her? This part's a slow unravel. Don't miss the sting. Ana Luz Fernandez felt like he was hiding something. Matteo Ignacio Torres stiffened. What do you mean? Ana gestured vaguely, her voice edged with unease. That watch you're wearing, it costs more than my semester's tuition. You know way too much about 16th century Italian masters, for someone who took one art history class in college. And whenever I ask about your family or where you live, you change the subject. She pressed, I told you I worked in corporate. Which corporation? Mateo sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. It's complicated, Anna. Try me, she said, her gaze steady. He hesitated, then slipped the watch off his wrist. Right, it was my grandfather's family heirloom. Anna wanted to believe him. The past few weeks with Mateo had been the brightest spot in her otherwise exhausting life in Buenos Aires. When they were together, talking about books, debating the merits of different artistic movements, she felt understood in a way she never had before. I like you, Anna, Mateo said quietly. Isn't that what matters? A part of her wanted to push further, to demand the full truth. But the vulnerability in his hazel eyes made her pause. Just don't lie to me, okay? She said softly. I've had enough people walk out of my life. I don't need more disappointment. Mateo reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. I'm not going anywhere. As they continued through the university gallery in Buenos Aires, Anna told herself to be content with what Mateo was willing to share. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that she was only seeing a carefully constructed version of him, a canvas with significant portions left deliberately blank. What she didn't realize was how quickly those blank spaces would be filled in, whether Mateo wanted them to be or not. Anna's shift ended at 10 p.m. later than usual, thanks to a coworker calling in sick at Despertar Vivo. The coffee shop was quiet as she wiped down the last tables, moonlight streaming through the windows. To her surprise, Mateo had stayed the entire evening, nursing a series of coffees and working on his laptop. Oh, you didn't have to wait, she said, untying her apron. I want to, Mateo replied, closing his computer. Besides, it's late. I thought I'd walk you to the bus stop. Outside, the night air carried a crisp autumn chill. Anna pulled her hoodie tighter around herself as they walked side by side, their shoulders occasionally brushing. You know what I realized today? Mateo asked, breaking the comfortable silence. What's that? It's been exactly 1 month since you saved me on the bus, he said. Anna laughed. Saved you? It was $3.50. It was more than that, Mateo said seriously. That day I was trying something new, stepping away from... He paused. From expectations. You didn't finish, Anna prompted when he didn't continue. You were the first person who didn't look at me and see... Mateo shook his head. See what? She asked, her voice gentle but firm. It doesn't matter, he said. What matters is that meeting you changed things for me. They stopped at the bus shelter, empty except for them. Anna turned to face him, studying his features in the glow of the streetlights. You know what I think, she said. I think we met each other exactly when we needed to. Mateo raised an eyebrow. Getting philosophical on me, art girl? Maybe, Anna smiled. My mama back in Mendoza always says there are no accidents in the universe. And what does your mama think about me? Mateo asked, stepping closer. She thinks it's suspicious that you'd never come over for dinner, Anna teased. Is that an invitation? He said, his voice soft. Anna hesitated. Her small apartment wasn't much. Nothing like what she imagined Mateo might be used to, whatever his background really was. Maybe, she replied, if you promise not to judge our mismatched plates and the fact that the elevator breaks down twice a week. I'd never, Mateo said gently. The air between them changed, suddenly charged with something neither had acknowledged until now. Anna became acutely aware of how close they were standing, Mateo's eyes dropping briefly to her lips. Anna, he whispered. I've wanted to... She didn't let him finish. Rising slightly on her toes, Anna pressed her lips to his, a gentle question that Mateo answered by pulling her closer, one hand cradling her face with unexpected tenderness. When they broke apart, Anna felt lightheaded, her heart racing beneath her ribs. "I've been wanting to do that for weeks," Matteo admitted, his forehead resting against hers. Anna smiled. "What took you so long?" In the distance, the headlights of the approaching bus cut through the darkness. Anna stepped back reluctantly. "I'll see you tomorrow?" she asked. Matteo nodded. "Definitely." As the bus carried her home through Buenos Aires' winding streets, Anna touched her lips, replaying the moment in her mind. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope for something more than just surviving each day. Whatever secrets Matteo was keeping, whatever complications lay ahead, tonight it felt real, a beginning rather than another dead end. What she couldn't see was Matteo still standing at the bus stop, his expression torn between joy and mounting guilt. Matteo paced his luxury hotel suite in Buenos Aires, phone pressed to his ear. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a panoramic view of the city lights, twinkling like fallen stars against the sky. 3 weeks had passed since his first kiss with Anna, and each day, the weight of his deception grew heavier. "I need more time, Papa," he said, tension evident in his voice. "The Singapore project can wait." "Nothing can wait in this business." Ignacio Torres's clipped tone betrayed his impatience. "You've been finding yourself for nearly 2 months now. The board is asking questions." "I'm not finding myself," Matteo retorted. "I'm learning how real people live." His father's laugh was cold. "Playing poor isn't going to make you a better CEO, son. It's going to make you soft." Matteo glanced at his watch, the same one Anna had noticed. In 30 minutes, he was supposed to meet her for dinner at her apartment. He'd finally agreed to meet her mother. "I have to go," he said abruptly. "This is about that girl, isn't it?" Ignacio's voice sharpened. "The coffee shop worker my investigator mentioned?" Matteo's grip tightened on his phone. "You had me followed?" "I protect my investments," Ignacio replied coolly. "You're the future of Torres Lux Hotels, whether you like it or not." After ending the call, Matteo stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. Who was he trying to fool? Every morning, he left this luxury suite, changed into regular clothes in a public restroom, and pretended to be someone he wasn't, all to spend time with a woman who valued honesty above everything else. Anna's voice echoed in his mind. "Just don't lie to me." But he had, every day, every conversation. The smell of homemade empanadas filled Anna's small apartment in Buenos Aires. Her mother, Sofia Fernandez, moved slowly around the kitchen, her cane tapping against the linoleum floor. "He's late," Sofia observed, checking the ancient clock on the wall. Anna adjusted the mismatched plates on their tiny dining table. "Only by 10 minutes, Mama. He'll be here." As if summoned by her confidence, a knock sounded at the door. Anna smoothed her dress, a thrift store find she'd spent hours altering, and took a deep breath before opening. Matteo stood in the hallway, clutching a bouquet of lilies and a bottle of wine that Anna suspected cost more than her weekly grocery budget. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his eyes conveying more apology than his words. "Work call ran long." Anna accepted the flowers with a smile. "Come in. Mama's been dying to meet you." Dinner progressed pleasantly, with Sofia sharing embarrassing stories from Anna's childhood in Mendoza and Matteo charming them both with his genuine interest and respectful questions about Sofia's life before her illness. "So, Matteo," Sofia said as they finished dessert, "Anna tells me you're in consulting. What kind exactly?" Matteo hesitated, the familiar panic rising whenever his fabricated background was questioned. "Hotel management, mostly," he replied. "That sounds interesting," Sofia nodded. "My late husband always said you can tell everything about a person by how they treat service workers." "I couldn't agree more," Matteo said, meeting Anna's eyes across the table. Later, as Anna walked him to the door, she whispered, "She loves you. I can tell." Matteo pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. Anna, there's something I need to tell you. What is it? She asked, pulling back to study his troubled expression. The words died in his throat. How could he explain that he wasn't just some ordinary guy, that his family controlled a billion-peso empire, that soon he'd be expected to return to a world where people like Anna were invisible? Nothing, he said finally. Just thank you for tonight. As he kissed her goodbye, Matteo knew he was running out of time. The truth was coming one way or another. The Wednesday afternoon rush at Despertar Vivo had finally slowed. Anna wiped down the espresso machine, humming quietly to herself. The past few weeks with Matteo had been like something from a movie. Late-night conversations, weekend walks through Buenos Aires parks, stolen kisses between her shifts. For once, her life felt balanced despite her hectic schedule. "Can I get a cappuccino?" a voice asked. Anna looked up to see a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and a press badge hanging around her neck. "Coming right up," Anna replied, starting the drink. The bell above the door chimed, and Matteo walked in, his face lighting up when he spotted her. He barely had time to register the familiar face of a businessman from his father's company standing in line. "Matteo?" The man squinted, then pulled out his phone. "No way." Matteo stiffened, his body going cold. A few customers turned their heads. "You look different," the man said, eyeing Matteo's worn jeans and coffee-stained sweater. Before Matteo could react, the journalist's voice cut through the room. "Matteo Torres." She stood near the counter, already pulling out her phone. "What are you doing here?" Anna froze, the name registering immediately. Torres, as in Torres Lux Hotels, the luxury chain whose billboards towered over Buenos Aires. Matteo's expression collapsed. "Melissa, don't—" The journalist snapped several photos before he could stop her. "Does your father know?" A flash blinds Buenos Aires. Matteo's mask slips, and Anna's world tilts. Is he the stranger she kissed, or a millionaire playing pretend? Shutters clicked, truth spilling fast. Next part's a reckoning. Don't turn away now. Buenos Aires' caffeine haze fades, but Ana Luz Fernandez can't escape the sting of Matteo Ignacio Torres' secret. A millionaire unmasked. Now she's dodging his ghost. 2 months of silence shatter when a stranger steps in, friend or foe. This truth's unraveling fast. Brace for the fallout. You're slumming it in coffee shops. Is this some kind of publicity stunt? Ana Luz Fernandez felt the room tilting. The cappuccino overflowed, hot milk spilling across the counter at Despertar Vivo. "Ana, I can explain." Matteo Ignacio Torres started, moving toward her, his voice urgent. "Matteo Torres?" she repeated, her tone hollow. "As in the Torres Lux Hotel's heir?" The journalist, a woman with sharp eyes and a press badge, looked between them, her gaze widening with understanding. "Oh, this is rich. Literally," she smirked, turning to Anna. "Honey, do you work here? How long have you known him?" "She's not part of this," Matteo snapped, stepping forward. "Leave her alone." But the damage was done. The journalist was already typing on her phone, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. Hotel heir Matteo Torres, spotted at local coffee shop New Life, or just a game, she muttered as she wrote. This'll go viral within the hour. Anna moved mechanically, cleaning up the spilled milk. Her mind racing through every conversation, every moment with Matteo, reframing them all in this new, devastating context. "Anna, please," Matteo pleaded, reaching across the counter. "It's true, isn't it?" Anna turned sharply, her voice breaking. "You knew?" Clara Rossi demanded, standing nearby, with arms crossed, her eyes narrowed. "No," Anna said, shaking her head. "But now it makes sense. You always tipped way too much, and that watch?" "I thought it was fake," Clara scoffed, her disgust palpable. "But now—" Matteo swallowed hard, guilt settling like a stone in his stomach. Anna stepped back, her voice hollow. "Were you ever going to tell me?" "Yes," he insisted. I was trying to find the right time. The right time was before I fell for you, Anna replied, her voice cracking. Not after everyone else already figured it out. Clara appeared from the back room, sensing the tension. Everything okay, Anna? Fine, Anna managed. I'm taking my break now. Without another word to Matteo, she untied her apron and walked to the staff room, closing the door behind her. Only then did she allow the tears to fall. Leave me alone, Matteo, Anna said, quickening her pace as she left Despertar Vivo through the back exit, her shift finally over, but the humiliation still burning fresh. Matteo followed her into the Buenos Aires alley, desperate. Anna, please, just give me 5 minutes. She wheeled around, eyes flashing. 5 minutes? You had 2 months to tell me the truth. 2 months of watching me count tips and worry about Mama's medical bills while you... Her voice caught. While you what? Played poor for fun? It wasn't like that, Matteo insisted. When we met on that bus, I was trying to experience life without the Torres name hanging over me. For once, I wanted someone to see just me. But it wasn't just you, was it? Anna's voice dropped dangerously low. It was a character you created. The struggling consultant. The humble guy rebuilding his life. She laughed bitterly. God, I feel so stupid. Everything I told you about myself, my thoughts, my feelings, what I want from life, that was all real. Except the part where you're heir to a 1 billion peso empire, she continued, her words cutting. That's not some minor detail, Matteo. That's your entire life. People passed by on the main street, some glancing curiously at their heated exchange. Anna became aware she was creating a scene and took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. Do you know what the worst part is? She asked quietly. I trusted you. I let you meet Mama. I told you things I've never told anyone. Tears threatened again, but she blinked them back. And all that time, you were lying to my face. Matteo reached for her hand, but Anna stepped away. Anna, I was going to tell you, I swear. I just didn't know how without losing you. Well, you figured out how to lose me anyway, she said, pulling her phone from her pocket. She showed him the screen. The journalist post had already been shared thousands of times, complete with photos of Matteo at the coffee shop and speculation about his secret romance with a barista. By tomorrow, everyone will know, Anna's voice wavered. My co-workers, my classmates. She shook her head. Was it worth it? Your little experiment in being normal? Matteo's face crumpled. You were never part of an experiment. What I feel for you is real. I don't even know who you are, she whispered. Please don't contact me again. Without waiting for his response, she turned and walked away, each step carrying her further from the future she'd foolishly begun to imagine. Behind her, Matteo remained rooted to the spot, watching the only genuine connection he'd ever known disappear around the corner. Matteo stood on the marble balcony of the Torres family estate in Buenos Aires, staring at the manicured gardens below without really seeing them. 3 days had passed since Anna walked away, 3 days of unanswered texts and calls that went straight to voicemail. The emptiness he felt was unlike anything he'd experienced before. I told you it wouldn't work. Ignacio Torres' voice came from behind him. Matteo's father approached with deliberate steps, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Matteo didn't turn around. I wasn't playing at anything, he said through gritted teeth. Ignacio raised an eyebrow. Then what would you call abandoning your responsibilities to pour coffee and chase after some girl who works for minimum wage? Her name is Anna, Matteo snapped. Ignacio laughed, the sound devoid of warmth. Playing poor isn't going to make you a better CEO, son. It's going to make you soft. Matteo exhaled, forcing himself to stay calm. I'm not coming back, Papa. Ignacio set his glass down with a sharp clink. Oh, you think you're not coming back? But you will. You're still legally bound to the company, Mateo, unless you want a courtroom battle over every peso you've ever spent in your little experiment. Mateo's stomach tightened. You wouldn't do that? Try me. Ignacio's voice was cold. You're either my son or just another problem I need to solve. Did you really think you could just live like a regular person? Ignacio continued, his tone cutting. You were born to be at the top. Ana saw me, Mateo said almost to himself. Not the Torres name or the money, just me. And now she's seen all of it and wants nothing to do with you, Ignacio pointed out brutally. That's reality, son. People either want you for your money or resent you for having it. There's no in between. The words landed like physical blows. Mateo turned back to the view, unable to bear the satisfied look in his father's eyes. The helicopter leaves for the board meeting at 9 a.m., Ignacio said, already walking away. I expect you to be on it, properly dressed and prepared to take your rightful place. When his father's footsteps faded, Mateo pulled out his phone one last time. His thumb hovered over Ana's contact information. What could he possibly say that would make a difference now? With a sudden clarity, Mateo realized he had to find his own path, one that wasn't defined by either his father's expectations or Ana's rejection. Ana's pencil moved across the page with swift, angry strokes. The university library in Buenos Aires was quiet, except for the occasional turning of pages and soft tapping of keyboards. 3 weeks had passed since the truth about Mateo exploded into her life, and she'd thrown herself into schoolwork with renewed determination. That doesn't look like Renaissance art to me, whispered Julieta, her classmate, peering over at Ana's sketchbook. Ana glanced down at her drawing, dark, chaotic lines forming a cityscape that felt more like her emotional state than anything she'd studied. Just clearing my head, she muttered. Have you seen this? Julieta slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a business news article. Torres heir resigns from family business, shocking board and investors. Ana's heart lurched against her will. The article showed a formal photo of Mateo in a suit, looking nothing like the man she'd known. Isn't that your coffee shop guy? Julieta asked. The one who... Yes, Ana cut her off, pushing the phone away. And I really don't want to talk about it. Later that evening, after her shift at Despertar Vivo, Ana helped her mother, Sofia Fernandez, prepare dinner in their small Buenos Aires apartment. The space felt safe, a world away from high-rise offices and billion-peso decisions. You're quiet tonight, Sofia observed, stirring a pot of soup on the stove. Ana shrugged. Busy day. Is it the boy? Mateo, Sofia continued, undeterred. Ana nearly dropped the plate she was holding. Mama, please. You know, Sofia said gently, your father wasn't always the man you remember. When we met in Mendoza, he was kind, idealistic. Money changed him, not the other way around. This isn't about Papa, Ana insisted, though the parallel wasn't lost on her. Mateo lied to me for months. He watched me struggle to make ends meet while he was probably going home to a penthouse every night. Maybe, Sofia said, her voice soft. Or maybe he was struggling in ways you couldn't see. Ana wanted to argue, but found herself remembering fragments of conversations Mateo's tense expression whenever his phone rang, his comments about expectations and freedom. Had there been truth buried within the lies? It doesn't matter anymore, Ana said finally. He's gone back to his world, and I'm still here in mine, exactly where I belong. But that night, as she worked on a term paper, Ana found herself searching for more news about Mateo's resignation. The articles revealed little, just corporate statements about pursuing other opportunities, and speculation about family tensions. Whatever Mateo was doing, it wasn't her concern anymore. Anna had her own path to follow: her education, her job, taking care of her mother. She closed her laptop, determined to focus on the things she could control. Still, as she drifted off to sleep, Anna couldn't help wondering where Mateo was tonight, and if he ever thought of her. The campus coffee shop in Buenos Aires wasn't as good as Despertar Vivo, but Anna needed a change of scenery. Midterms loomed, and she couldn't risk running into reminders of Mateo at her workplace. 2 months had passed since their confrontation in the alley, and the gossip had finally begun to fade. "Ana Luz Fernandez?" She looked up from her textbook to see a tall, well-dressed man approaching her table. Something about his confident stride seemed familiar. "I'm Jaime," he said, extending his hand. "Jaime Whitaker. I'm a friend of Mateo's from business school." Ana stiffened. Buenos Aires whispers fade, but a new face stirs Anna's guarded peace. "Jaime's here. Mateo's shadow looms. Is this a friend's plea or a billionaire's game? The past won't stay buried. Next part's a collision you won't see coming." Buenos Aires echoes fade, but Ana Luz Fernandez steps into Mendoza's mountain whispers. Mateo Ignacio Torres stands bare, no empire, just a man. A bus ride brought her here. Will truth mend their past or break it forever? This clash is raw and real. Don't look away now. "I'm not interested in talking about Mateo," Ana Luz Fernandez said firmly, her voice edged with steel. "Just 5 minutes," Jaime Whitaker insisted, taking the seat across from her at the campus coffee shop in Buenos Aires without waiting for permission. "I saw you through the window, and I couldn't pass up the chance to set something straight." "There's nothing to set straight," Anna replied coldly. "He lied. End of story." Jaime studied her for a moment. "Did you know Mateo was supposed to take over as CEO this year? His father had been grooming him since he was 18. Despite herself, Anna felt a flicker of curiosity. So? So Mateo hated it. All of it. Jaime leaned forward, his tone earnest. The expectations, the privilege, the way people treated him, like he was nothing but a bank account. The day he met you on that bus, he just walked out of a board meeting after telling his father he needed time away. Anna's grip tightened around her coffee cup. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Mateo's gone," Jaime said simply. "He quit the company, refused his trust fund, and left. No one knows where he is, not even his family." The news hit Anna harder than she expected. "That's extreme." "Is it?" Jaime raised an eyebrow. "Or is it exactly what he told you he wanted? Freedom to be himself without the Torres name defining him." Anna remembered Mateo's words at Despertar Vivo. "What do you want?" she'd asked. "Freedom. To just be me," he'd answered. When she'd turned the question back on him, he'd said more. And now it echoed in her mind. "Look," Jaime continued, "I'm not saying you should forgive him for lying, but maybe consider that Mateo's relationship with you was the most honest thing in his life, even with the omissions." After Jaime left, Anna sat motionless, her textbook forgotten. She'd been so focused on how Mateo had deceived her that she hadn't considered what their relationship might have meant to him. That evening, as she walked home through Buenos Aires' bustling streets, she passed a newsstand with a business magazine. The headline caught her eye. "Torres Hotels faces uncertain future without heir apparent." For the first time since their breakup, Anna allowed herself to wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was more to Mateo's story than she'd been willing to see. The Pinewood Lodge sat nestled against the Mendoza Mountains, its weathered wooden sign swinging gently in the breeze. Nothing like the gleaming Torres Lux hotels with their crystal chandeliers and marble floors. This place had character. Peeling paint, creaking floorboards, and a charm that couldn't be manufactured. "You missed a spot," called Marco Sanchez, the 60-year-old owner, pointing to a corner of the reception desk Mateo was polishing. Sorry, Mateo replied, adding more varnish to his cloth. After 3 weeks working at the independent hotel, he still wasn't used to taking orders instead of giving them. His small room in the staff quarters was roughly the size of his former bathroom in Buenos Aires. The pay barely covered essentials. Yet, despite everything, Mateo felt lighter than he had in years. "There's a leak in cabin 7, Marcos announced, dropping a toolbox beside Mateo. "Think you can handle it?" 2 months ago, Mateo would have called maintenance. Now he nodded confidently, though he had only a vague idea how to fix a leaky pipe. Later, soaked but victorious after battling the plumbing, Mateo sat on the lodge's back porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. His phone, a basic model, not the latest smartphone he once carried, buzzed with a text from Jaime. "Your father announced a new CEO today. Stock dropped 3%. How's mountain life?" Mateo smiled slightly. The stock drop would infuriate Ignacio, but it wasn't his problem anymore. "Better than expected," he typed back. "Learning actual skills for once." A young family checked in while Mateo was on reception duty that evening. Their little girl stared wide-eyed at the guanaco head mounted on the wall. "Is it real?" she whispered. Mateo leaned over the counter. "Between you and me, I think it might wink if you watched long enough." The girl giggled and her parents smiled gratefully. Such a small interaction, yet it filled Mateo with a satisfaction he'd never known in boardrooms. That night, as moths danced around the porch light, Mateo pulled out Anna's photograph from his wallet. He'd taken it one afternoon at a Buenos Aires park, catching her mid-laugh as autumn leaves swirled around her. Sometimes he considered calling her, telling her about his new life, asking for another chance. But what a right did he have? Anna deserved someone who'd been honest from the start. Still, on nights like this, with the weight of the Torres legacy finally off his shoulders, Mateo allowed himself to imagine a different ending to their story. One where he'd found the courage to tell her the truth before it was too late. Perhaps someday he'd be worthy of a second chance. For now, learning to be truly himself was enough. "You should go find him," Clara Rossi said, sliding a freshly made latte across the counter to Anna at Despertar Vivo. 3 months had passed since Anna learned the truth about Mateo. 3 months of throwing herself into work and school, trying to forget, but the ache remained, stubborn and persistent. "And say what?" Anna replied, wiping down the espresso machine. "Hey, remember me, the girl you lied to for months?" Clara rolled her eyes. "Jaime told you where Mateo is, some mountain lodge, right? What's stopping you?" Anna had shared the encounter with Jaime weeks ago, but had conveniently left out the part where he'd slipped her a note with Mateo's whereabouts. The Pinewood Lodge, 6 hours north by bus. Pride, Anna admitted finally, and fear. That evening, Anna sat across from her mother, Sofia Fernandez, at their tiny kitchen table in Buenos Aires. Sofia's health had improved slightly in recent weeks, allowing her to cook dinner for the first time in months. "You're quiet tonight," Sofia observed, stirring a pot of locro on the stove. Anna stabbed at her food with her fork. "He lied to me," she said abruptly. "For weeks, maybe months. And now he just walks away from it all, like that changes anything." Sofia looked at her daughter carefully. "And yet you're still thinking about him." Anna sighed, leaning back. "I hate that I am." She crossed her arms. "But I need to know if he really changed, or if he's just playing another role." Sofia nodded knowingly, then softened her expression. "I wondered when you'd make that decision." "You knew?" Anna asked, surprised. "You check business news websites daily. You've barely dated since he left, and sometimes I hear you say his name in your sleep." Sofia reached across the table to take her daughter's hand. "The question isn't whether you should go, it's why you haven't gone already." Later that night, Anna pulled out her laptop and looked up bus schedules. The cost of the ticket would eat into her savings, money she'd been putting aside for next semester's books. Was Mateo worth the risk? She remembered his face the last time she'd seen him, devastated, pleading, and she remembered her own anger, justified but perhaps incomplete. There were two sides to every story, and she'd only allowed herself to see one. Anna thought about what Jaime had told her, about Mateo walking away from everything he'd ever known, about his search for something real in a world built on appearances. Wasn't that what she wanted too? Authenticity in a world of masks. Before she could change her mind, Anna booked the ticket for Friday after her final exam and before her weekend shift. She'd have exactly 24 hours to find Mateo, say what she needed to say, and return. What would she say when she saw him? Anna wasn't sure. Part of her wanted to scream at him again for his deception. Another part wanted to understand why he'd chosen this path. And a small, persistent voice wondered if they could start over this time with no lies between them. The Pinewood Lodge looked exactly like the picture on its website. Rustic, charming, and worlds away from the luxury hotels that bore the Torres name. Anna stood at the edge of the gravel parking lot in Mendoza, her small overnight bag clutched in one hand, doubt suddenly flooding her mind. What if Mateo didn't want to see her? What if he'd moved on? What if this entire trip was a mistake? Before she could reconsider, the lodge's front door swung open. A family emerged, laughing as they headed toward their car. Anna took a deep breath and walked forward. The reception area smelled of pine and coffee. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, and hiking maps covered one wall. Behind the desk, an older man with a gray beard looked up as she entered. "Welcome to Pinewood," he said warmly. "Checking in?" "Actually," Anna hesitated, "I'm looking for someone who works here. Mateo Torres." The man's expression shifted, becoming guarded. "And you are?" "Ana Luz Fernandez," she replied. "I'm a friend." Before the man could respond, a door behind the desk opened, and Mateo appeared, carrying a stack of fresh towels. He froze when he saw her, the towels nearly slipping from his grasp. "Anna." His voice was barely a whisper. She drank in the sight of him, his hair longer, his face more tanned than before, wearing a simple flannel shirt with the lodge's logo, nothing like the carefully casual, expensive clothes he'd worn when they met in Buenos Aires. "Hi," she managed, suddenly at a loss for all the words she'd rehearsed on the bus ride. Mateo set the towels down, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You found me." Mendoza's mountains hold a stunned Mateo. Anna's here, face to face with her liar. 6 hours on a bus for 5 years of secrets. Will truth spark a flame or douse their last ember? Next part's a heart-to-heart you won't forget. Stay with us. Buenos Aires' chaos fades, but Mendoza's mountains cradle a fragile hope. Ana Luz Fernandez offers coffee, not forgiveness. Can Mateo Ignacio Torres prove he's more than his lies? From a bus fare to a museum's glow, this finale is a quiet triumph stay for the spark that changes it all. "It was all real," Mateo Ignacio Torres replied without hesitation, his voice steady against the soft rush of the Mendoza Creek. "Except the parts I didn't tell you." A silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken questions. Finally, Ana Luz Fernandez turned to face him directly. "If money doesn't define you," she said, her tone measured, "then what does?" Mateo's expression softened, a small smile forming at the corner of his mouth. "Who I choose to be." The simple answer hung in the air. Ana realized that Mateo had found what he'd been searching for all along. Not an escape from his name, but the freedom to define himself on his own terms. "And who is that?" she asked softly. "The real Mateo." Instead of answering immediately, Mateo extended his hand. "Would you like to find out?" They sat on a fallen log overlooking the creek, the afternoon sun filtering through pine branches. For the first time, there were no pretenses between them. No coffee shop counter, no
hidden identities. Just two people trying to find their way back to something real. I shouldn't have lied to you, Matteo began, his voice quiet against the backdrop of rushing water. Not for a single day. Anna nodded, letting his words settle. Why did you? That first day on the bus, when you helped me, he said, picking up a pine cone and turning it over in his hands.
No one had ever seen me as just a person before. I was terrified of losing that. Every day I meant to tell you, and every day I convinced myself to wait a little longer. Tell me everything now, Anna said, her gaze firm. No more half-truths. Matteo took a deep breath and began. He told her about growing up in the shadow of his father's empire in Buenos Aires, Ignacio Torres grooming him since childhood for a role he never wanted. He described the emptiness of a world where relationships were transactions, every kindness laced with unspoken conditions. The day I met you, he continued, I just told Papa I needed time away. I left my wallet behind on purpose. I wanted to see what would happen if I had nothing. And then you helped me. You helped a complete stranger with no expectation of return, Anna said, understanding dawning. It was the most honest interaction I'd had in years, Matteo admitted. Anna listened as Matteo explained his journey after their falling out. How he'd walked away from everything, refused his inheritance, and found his way to the Pinewood Lodge in Mendoza with nothing but determination to build a life on his own terms. I make 9 pesos an hour, plus tips, he said, rubbing his tired eyes. Last week I had to choose between fixing my boots or buying groceries. I live in a room the size of a closet, and I still haven't figured out how to sleep without hearing every creak in the old wooden walls. But I've never been happier. Are you really never going back to any of it? Anna asked, searching his face. Matteo met her gaze directly. I don't know what my future holds, but I know I'll never go back to living a lie, whether it's with my family or with you. The sun began to set, painting the mountains in shades of orange and pink. Anna realized her bus back to Buenos Aires would leave in a few hours. Time was running out for whatever this reunion was meant to be. I came here because I needed closure, she admitted. But now I'm not sure what I want. What are you afraid of? Matteo asked gently. Anna considered the question. That you've changed, but not enough. That we're still from different worlds. That this isn't enough time to rebuild trust. You're right, Matteo nodded, his honesty both painful and freeing. It isn't enough time. A fragile foundation shimmered between them. No promises, just the raw truth. Dusk settled over the mountains as Anna and Matteo walked back toward the lodge, their conversation clearing the air but leaving them in an uncertain place, neither together nor fully apart. I can drive you to the station, Matteo offered as they approached the main building, warm light spilling from its windows. Thanks, Anna replied, trying to ignore the heaviness in her chest. In the lodge's small kitchen, Matteo prepared 2 cups of coffee, a habit from their past that now felt both familiar and strange. Old habits, he said with a small smile, sliding a cup toward her. Anna accepted it, their fingers briefly touching. This is good coffee, she said. Not as good as yours, he replied, the simple compliment, a quiet nod to where they'd started. What happens now? Anna finally asked, the question lingering since she'd arrived. Matteo leaned against the counter, his expression thoughtful. That depends on what you want, Anna. What I want. She hadn't expected him to turn the question back on her. I've made my choice, he said quietly. I chose honesty, even if it meant losing everything I thought I needed. But I can't make your choice for you. Anna stared into her coffee, searching for answers in its depths. I don't know if I can trust you again, she admitted. That's fair, he replied, his voice steady. But I also don't know if I want to walk away without giving us a real chance. Outside, the lodge's old pickup truck sat waiting to take her to the bus station. Time was running out. We could start small, Mateo suggested. Phone calls, visits when you can manage them. Long distance is hard enough without adding trust issues, Anna countered. Mateo nodded, accepting her point without argument. This new version of him, patient, humble, willing to face hard truths, was both strange and compelling. I should go, Anna said finally, glancing at the clock. Mama's expecting me back tomorrow. They walked to the truck in silence, 1,000 unspoken words between them. As Mateo opened the passenger door for her, Anna made a decision. Coffee, she said suddenly. What? Let's start with coffee. She met his gaze directly. Next Saturday, my day off. You come to Buenos Aires. We get coffee somewhere neutral. No promises beyond that. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't a relationship, not anymore. But it was a possibility, a door left deliberately ajar. Mateo's smile was cautious, hopeful. I'd like that. 2 years later, Anna adjusted her blazer as she walked through the museum's marble hallway in Buenos Aires. After working as a curatorial assistant, today marked her first exhibition opening, Mujeres del Renacimiento, Artistas Olvidadas de Florencia, in the museum's East Wing, the culmination of her graduate thesis. Nervous, asked her colleague Tomas, straightening a placard beside a 16th century portrait. Terrified, Anna admitted, checking her watch. Visitors would arrive in 30 minutes. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. So proud of you. See you at 7. The next message was from Mateo. Running late. Traffic. Save me some of those fancy empanadas. Anna smiled, tucking the phone away. Their path back to each other hadn't been straightforward. That first coffee date led to another, then weekend visits to Mendoza. For months, they existed in a careful middle ground, not quite together, not quite apart. When Mateo eventually returned to Buenos Aires, it wasn't to rejoin Torres Lux Hotels. Instead, he launched a small consulting firm, helping independent hotels compete against luxury chains. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Anna straightened a frame, remembering how Mateo had helped her hang preliminary sketches in her tiny apartment, while she prepared her exhibition proposal. He'd been there through rejection letters and eventual acceptance, just as she'd supported him through reconciling with parts of his family while maintaining his independence. The museum doors opened early, and a familiar figure entered. I thought you were stuck in traffic, Anna said as Mateo approached. I might have exaggerated to surprise you. He handed her a small, wrapped package. For your big day. Inside was an antique silver bookmark engraved with a Renaissance design. It reminded me of you, he explained. Beautiful but practical. Smooth talker, Anna teased, though she was clearly touched. As guests began arriving, Anna took a moment to watch Mateo chatting with her colleagues. He moved through the world differently now, confident in who he was, not what his name represented. Their relationship wasn't perfect. They still argued about money sometimes, Anna's ingrained frugality clashing with Mateo's occasional splurges. Trust had taken time to rebuild, with setbacks along the way. But standing in this moment, watching her personal and professional worlds merge seamlessly, Anna felt a profound sense of rightness. Their story hadn't followed any conventional path, no dramatic rescues, no grand sacrifices. Just two people choosing each other day after day, despite their differences. As the exhibition officially opened and Anna stepped forward to give her welcoming speech, she caught Mateo's encouraging smile from the crowd. Sometimes, the most extraordinary journey began with the simplest gesture, like lending spare change to a stranger on a bus. From a Buenos Aires bus to a Mendoza vow, Anna and Mateo built a love on truth's fragile thread. A museum glow seals their tale. Did this ending steal your heart? Share your tears below. We've reached the end, but the echoes linger. Hey, friends, what did you think of Anna and Mateo's journey? Did their quiet triumph warm your soul or leave you misty-eyed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm dying to hear how this landed. If this tale of trust and redemption moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story that could spark hope. Where are you watching from? Let us know below. Your voices fuel these tales. What's next? More love, grit, or miracles? Tell me. Until the next story, keep chasing the real.